The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
So there appears to have been a non-stop flow of regulatory updates and news from the United States, and a lot to break down and a lot of potential things to worry about in the future. So joining us to discuss all this is Executive Director at the Blockchain Foundation, Cleve Mesidor. Welcome, Cleve.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Good morning. So, all right, I want to start with this SEC case. There's an SEC case against ICO promoter Ian Balina. And somewhere in this SEC case is the apparent suggestion that the Ethereum network could be subject to U.S. securities law. And I just want to get your opinion on this. Like, is this even a thing, first of all? Like, I can't tell if this is even a thing or if this is just like this potential hypothetical thing that just gives the crypto community something else to worry about. Or is this actually something that could happen? Because the idea of the Ethereum network being subject to U.S. securities laws seems to be quite a big deal.
It is a big deal, and certainly we've seen Gensler embolden, right, and pushing forward. Even on the day of the merge, during a speech, he targeted Ethereum and indicated this whole piece about securities. And we know that, the CFTC years ago, declared or said that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin are commodities. So this is a jurisdictional issue, but Gensler is not just emboldened, he is empowered now. We saw the White House report on, the executive order results that he received from the various agencies, and it was quite disappointing. They focused on risk, and did not even look at the opportunities. And even in Treasury Undersecretary Nellie Lang's speech, yesterday, again, looking at the executive order report, it was, again, very focused on risk. So I think, SEC Secretary Gensler is charging forward and even looking at Ethereum. And I would say my concern is not just about this regulatory issue, right, in terms of commodities or securities when it comes to SEC versus CFTC. It's also about the ecosystem. The entrepreneurs that are actually infusing the Ethereum ecosystem, creating products and services, are very diverse. It's women, it's Black and Latino and Asian innovators, and the implications for them are significant.
Okay, so let's just break this down because this is fascinating, right? If Ethereum is subject to U.S. securities law, and Ethereum also is a global network, I mean, can you just break down for us, how does this play out? How does this work? What does this look like, a world in which Ethereum is subject to U.S. securities law? I think it would be helpful for people to kind of be able to visualize what the impact of this might be.
Well, it's hard to visualize what the impact will be because we know globally every government is really looking at these laws, right? And we don't have continuity in terms of what the laws look like from one, country to another. But we know what the impact will be on innovation here in the U.S., right? We know that it will dampen innovation. It will cause entrepreneurs, startups to look elsewhere to innovate. And so the direct impact on the U.S. is, can the U.S. have a crypto economy that is fueled by entrepreneurship? And we don't know where that's going.
Well, I think just to follow up on that point, the other day, Brian Armstrong tweeted that this was actually a national security issue, right, if the U.S. falls behind in regulation. But he didn't really explain what he meant by that, and you kind of hear a lot of that rhetoric out there. So can you explain why this, if you agree, why this is a national security issue if crypto, ends up leaving the United States, or ends up mostly leaving the United States?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it's a national security issue, but I do think there are national security implications, right? If the U.S. seeds this whole economy, right, this whole market, it lives elsewhere. If entrepreneurs and startup founders are forced to go abroad, right, it becomes harder for the U.S. to have oversight over, American companies if Americans are not innovating here. So yes, it's not. There are national security implications, but there's also implications for the U.S. economy, but also for how the U.S. will actually be able to compete in the global innovation economy. So there's a lot of concerns as it becomes harder and harder for small businesses, entrepreneurs to actually innovate here with the lack of regulatory clarity that we have.
Cleve, nonetheless, this is coming off on the heels, when we step back a bit, $60 billion or so that was lost because of the collapse of Terra Luna. The focus on risk, why do you think that it's excessive when all the people that are supposed to have benefited from crypto were in many cases wiped out, and the small investor lost a tremendous amount of money buying into the hype of Terra Luna? And then you have also questions about stable coins, for instance, and what backs many of those. Aren't there a lot of questions that still have to be answered for any innovation to go forward? If you have so much grifting, quite honestly, and theft in the market from established players, from large institutions that were buying into this and were promoting this stuff, do you think why would you say that the White House is too focused on the risk if it can't get past the risk until you can't get to the opportunities unless the risks are overcome?
Yeah, but you can't talk about risk and ignore the opportunities, right? As I lead the Blockchain Foundation, risk education is at the heart of the work that we're doing. You can't consumers need to take risks to build wealth. And right now, building wealth for women, for people of color is at the heart of the conversation. So when you only focus on risk, you indicate that this is bad. This is something we should move forward from. Like, so I would have been fine if the White House had looked at, yes, the risk, but here's some of the potential opportunities, and then looked at it from an empowerment lens, because we do need to recognize, since communities of color are leading adoption of this, right? We're not going to stop that train. And if our bent is just on how do we stop it, how do we look at it from that lens, we're not going to innovate. And let's be clear, Terra Luna, the collapse of Terra Luna was just a business model that was just not going to work, right? So, and then we could even say that about Celsius. We are at the future frontier. This is the starting line. We're going to have to let the space grow and mature, including some business models that may not work. But it's not a reflection of the whole entire industry. And I think we have to admit that.
So, Cleve, you're set to testify.
If we look at nuclear, if we look at, let's say, if we're looking at nuclear power, of course, we're going to say there are environmental benefits to nuclear power. It's clean, and it's cheap, and it offers a lot of electricity. But it's nuclear power, and it could blow up really badly if we don't manage those risks. Isn't that kind of the same situation here? Shouldn't we focus on the risk for the next, couple of years? And doesn't the blockchain community, doesn't the crypto community have a responsibility to work out its problems with, let's say, political leaders, with social leaders, with economic leaders, to deal with this before it gets out of control and implodes like what we saw over the summer?
Yes, I do not think comparing crypto to nuclear power is accurate, but I see the point that you're getting at. Yeah,
nuclear power does stuff.
But you know what? That comparison is not merited here. But I see the point where you're going. Right? We have to make sure there are guardrails in place. We have to make sure consumers are protected. But it doesn't mean that we take the most extreme lens. Right now, you cannot have a White House saying this is bad, regulatory bodies fighting over regulation, and Congress trying to figure it out. Right now, there's an argument that could say that Celsius occurred and Terra Luna occurred because we don't have regulatory clarity, but because regulators have failed to provide the rules of the road that we need, that the industry has been asking for.
So, Cleve, you're set to testify before the House on a hearing on assessing crypto as a tool for financial inclusion. So I understand the hearing was postponed, but what do you hope to get out of this hearing? Why do you think, what's the aim of it, and what do you hope to get across to lawmakers?
Yeah, so yesterday was supposed to be the first hearing exclusively focused on financial inclusion. It was postponed hours before, so I hope that's not an indication of how Congress feels about financial inclusion. But I was excited that this conversation was happening. At every crypto hearing over the last few years, we've seen the issue of financial inclusion come up. Financial inclusion is an issue we have to address. We have to actually solve if the U.S. is going to compete in the innovation economy. We have too many people who have been locked out of a traditional financial system. We know Black and Latino communities lead national adoption of cryptocurrency. Why is that? Because they've been locked out. And it's been professionals like myself, but it's also been rural communities, indigenous communities, right? So as we look at financial inclusion, we hear from Congress all the time that they're skeptical about this claim from the industry. Well, you know what? As an advocate for inclusion, I'm skeptical about Congress's commitment to really solving this issue as well, because they are not focused on inclusive policy making, and they're not talking to the folks who are really driving this. And those are the Black and Latino innovators in crypto. So I'm excited for the hearing to be rescheduled, but I hope more hearings will actually occur and include voices from Black and Latino communities who can really speak to this issue.